spiral over to social studies standards. Where's your head at right now? We're about 3/4 of the way through the process.
Oh, look, I'm excited. We continue to have conversations with the legislature, spoke to the House caucus, saw the Senate President, Pro Tem Paxton, speak out yesterday that they're looking to move them forward. The Speaker and I have had great conversations around them. He's spoken positively about it publicly as well. And look, the legislature ultimately makes that decision, but I feel very good about it. I feel good about the conversations. I appreciate leadership in the House and Senate allowing me to have that direct conversation with their members and caucus and things like that. So look, I think it's going very well. I appreciate the feedback and the conversations. And again, I appreciate House and Senate leadership to continue moving the ball forward with us.
What's some of the feedback you've heard from them? What's the communication been like?
And I want to be careful. I don't want to share, they can share private conversations where I try to keep those between us. But, some of the things I've heard is impressed with the amount of detail that went into it. Again, we've greatly increased the standards. So again, you're going to see a lot more specifics about the foundations of our country. You're going to see a lot of mentions of the Bible. You're going to see more mentions of our founding fathers than ever before. You're going to see an emphasis on American exceptionalism. And you're going to see a deep dive into things that we haven't done in our history classes across the state that are going to be more supported with these standards. So again, we've heard a lot of positive feedback.
But it's still pending.
Sure.
So the hard part is, what happens if these don't get approval? Well, what happens? What's next?
Look, I'm very confident that they're going to be approved. I mean, everything that we're hearing seems very positive. So I'm very confident in that. And look, if they chose to go in another direction, we would have to regroup and figure out what the next steps were. But I'm very confident in working with House and Senate leadership that we will get this done. And look, we're always going to take their feedback. And so, look, I'm looking forward to continue to work with them on it.
But if they did turn it down, the process starts all over.
Yeah, just practically speaking, what would happen is if they could reject some, they could modify some. I mean, depending on what they did, we would go back to the drawing board and either rewrite for them, make adjustments that they recommend, anything like that. So it just really depends on what the action is. But if it were to be completely voted down, we'd have to go back to square one there with the process. Yeah.
And spell it out for me like I'm a brand new teacher. So if they change some things, does it get sent back to y'all for further approval? What happens next if they change a few things?
No, then it would be done. I mean, ultimately, look, it is the legislature's decision. They will ultimately make the decision on it. So we gave them an option. We worked hard on it. We invited them in early in the process. So some of the senators and House members, we were having conversations months ago about it. But ultimately, we develop them. So we did that internally with the agency. And we've now turned them over to the legislature, and we're going to continue to have those conversations. But again, I'm very confident that these will get approved and they'll be into effect this fall.
History is still your favorite subject?
Of course. Look,
social studies feels personal for you, doesn't it?
Look, it is. And I shared this a lot with the legislators, senators, and representatives. I'm a history teacher of 10 years. I love it. I drive my kids crazy wanting to talk about history every night with them. But look, I think it's so important we understand where we came from so that we can continue to have a path forward that's going to make us the greatest country in the history of the world. So to me, history, it is very personal. I think it's incredibly important for our country to tell our story, that our kids are proud to be Americans, that our kids understand what makes America exceptional, so that we can continue to be that great country moving forward.
Gotcha. And so, still process ahead. If the board wanted it, would you put a reconsideration vote on the agenda? So walk me through that. So you're saying if the legislature wanted what? Essentially, if on last board meeting, there was a few of the new members who wanted a reconsideration vote, is that even possible at this point?
No, the standards are done. Standards are done. We have done our part. We developed them, we voted on them, we approved them. They're at the legislature. So on our end, everything's done. So we have went through a 8 or 9 month process, finished it up. They approved it, it's moved forward. So now it is completely up to the legislature and up or down vote.
So legally, there's nothing you can do to just take that back, change it. That
Correct.
Might look shady to begin with.
Correct. That's our finished product. We have now given it over to them for final approval. And again, it is ultimately their decision, so they can vote yes or no. But our part of the process is finished.
Okay, that's good to hear. If you're cool, we'll go transition to USD.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't have a good segue for that. I feel like that was
No
much
worries.
on there. Now, executive order came down.
Sure.
Looks like the USD is in the process of going away.
Sure.
What have you heard so far?
I'll go ahead and tell you, I was at U.S. Department of Education this week. So I was in D.C., met with some of the top officials there. Look, they are dramatically cutting down that agency. It is going to look dramatically different just in the upcoming weeks. And I'm telling you, we couldn't have had a more positive meeting. They couldn't be more excited about the work Oklahoma's doing. We talked about our waiver. We're going to be hearing back from them soon on that. Very excited about the waiver. But look, President Trump is doing the right thing. You've got to get rid of the Federal Department of Education and return education to the states, which is where it was always meant to be. I mean, it's ridiculous that the feds took over education in the 1970s. You've got to put it back in the states. And look, we're going to continue to move forward to advance in education, and the more we're empowered, the better we're going to be able to do that. President Trump is 100% right, and frankly, he's fulfilling his campaign promises at a record pace.
Kind of hit my next question there a little bit, but I was going to ask, what is the communication like between the State Board of Education and your office and the federal? Because I want to make sure we're not relying off just press releases from the White House.
No.
Sounds like you were just there, though.
I was there. I was there earlier this week. We've got a very close relationship with both the Federal Department of Education and the White House. And so we're going to continue that communication moving forward so that we continue to make sure that what we're doing is in alignment with not only, what their what an executive order is, but also having a direct line of communication to say, is what Oklahoma's doing, or what we're doing in line with President Trump's vision. We've maintained that communication, and so that's something that is very important to us. Is we know Oklahomans agree with President Trump. They want to see his vision enacted, and right now we're going to continue to do this. But we're the best state in education in line with President Trump's vision, and we're going to continue to do that.
Gotten a chance to speak with Secretary McMahon?
I'm going to keep some of the specifics to myself, but we've met with the top officials, had a lot of great conversations with them. But yes, we've had a lot of conversations with the top executives there.
So I know the federal side only can control so much of the funding.
Sure.
There's only a percentage that comes from them, but will this change at all how the funds flow into Oklahoma schools?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, what I would say is it's not going to impact the amounts. So Oklahoma will get a very similar amount to what we got in the past, if not probably more, because they're cutting so much bureaucracy. So that's one of the big benefits here is as they cut bureaucracy, that allows more money to get directly to schools, directly to states. So that's exciting. But what we're looking at is how do we take all of the federal strings off of these dollars so that the state of Oklahoma, our local districts can decide better how these dollars are used in the classroom. Every school's different, every school's unique. So we want to make sure that the schools are able to use these funds in a way that meets the needs of all of our kids. And again, we want to see more parental involvement in education. So we want to make sure that parents are empowered in whatever we're doing with these education funds.
Absolutely. I'm going to adjust in case you need a break. Do you need water or anything?
No, sir.
Sweet.
Good.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So, I grew up during all the teacher walkouts
Sure.
when I was in school. And I feel, you were a teacher around that time as well.
Yes, sir.
I feel like we're still facing the uphill battle. It's so hard to get money into the classroom. What's it going to take?
Well, look, here's part of my frustration is the legislature has done a tremendous job. We've increased education funding to a record amount. We've got over $800 million more in yearly revenue in education in the last 4 years. That's incredible. The investment in education has been there. But I'm going to tell you this, the problem in education isn't the amount of money going in. It is how the money is being spent. We have to spend less on administration and spend more money in the classroom. We supported a bill this year that would ensure that 60% of funds ended up in the classroom. The teachers union fought it. We had an administrators association that fought it. I mean, think about that. They don't want to spend 60% of dollars in the classroom. They would rather spend it on administrative cost, on bureaucracy. I believe that's absurd. We are going to continue to fight to get more money in the classroom, not more money going to education, but more of the dollars that are going there into education. The taxpayers have demanded that. When they've increased the funding for education, it has been to get the money to teachers, to kids directly, not to hire more bureaucrats. And so we're going to continue to fight that. We're looking at ways inside the agency to push that as well. We want money in the classroom, not growing bureaucracy.
I had a good conversation with Representative Caldwell on that exact bill on it, and I'll ask you the same question I asked him is, how is that not encroaching on local control?
Because these are taxpayer dollars. And when we talk about funding education as a state, everyone has a say in that. So taxpayers have a say in that, voters have a say in that, parents and grandparents have a say in that. And when they're sending this money to a local district, they are not wanting the local district to sit here and just hire more administrative staff. That is the bureaucracy that has continued to drive education downward. What we've got to do is make sure that that money is invested in teachers, parents, and kids. The legislature can absolutely direct how those funds are spent. At the Department of Education, we're continuing to look at ways that we provide that accountability and transparency. But look, taxpayers aren't sending their money to schools to go hire a bunch more administrators. They're sending it there so that the kids get a better education, and we know that happens through teachers getting supported. That's where the funding should go, not to hire more administrative staff.
So the reassurance that these dollars are still going to go to the correct areas, with the USDE possibly going away, that'd be the legislature who has oversight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for me, I fundamentally want our state legislature and state officials making that decision rather than a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. So what happens when the Federal Department of Education goes away is state law is what will direct the funds. State officials are who will direct the funds. So that gives us so much more ability as Oklahomans to determine how we'll fund education. And look at the decisions we've made locally. We have merit pay for teachers. It's been tremendous. We've done signing bonuses for teachers. We've looked at how the free market and innovation can drive educational outcomes. We've tried to increase parental choice. We've got more school choice in Oklahoma than any other state. We've been able to do these things because state officials, the state legislature has done this, not the Federal Department of Education, not the federal government. And so now we're going to have the opportunity to increase these things, to increase innovation, because the state will be able to make the decision, not Washington, D.C. And this is the way it was always intended.
One could definitely say that the federal government played a big role in making sure money went to Title I or individuals with disabilities. Yeah. What's the reassurance to make sure the money keeps going there where it's needed?
I trust the people in the state of Oklahoma a lot more than I do the federal government. I mean, the reality is the federal government messes up almost everything they touch. So I don't want a federal bureaucrat saying, hey, don't worry, we got it up here, we'll check on all those things. Oh, I would much rather say the state of Oklahoma will ensure that our kids are taken care of. We'll ensure that schools are being funded appropriately and funding is being spent in the right way. That should be up for the state, parents, local communities, not the federal government. And again, what we're doing now is empowering people, because here's the reality too. Oklahomans care exponentially more about the future of the state of Oklahoma than a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. So Oklahomans are going to go, hey, look, we want to make sure that our kids are learning at the highest possible level. We want to make sure our kids can get a job when they graduate. We want to make sure that, hey, our great teachers can make more money. We want to make sure that bureaucracy isn't growing. Oklahomans are dedicated to that, and frankly, Oklahomans understand education. They understand what's best for the state. They understand what's best for their kids. And so we want to continue to put power in their hands.
Gotcha. And I just have a few questions left. Just want to reassure you all. And the hard one is, this one, I want to stay on briefly if I can. But there's been a lot of debate around the Bibles. That's what I'm heading towards. There was thousands spent on Bibles.
Sure.
Praised by some, criticized him. Sure. You've heard it all at this point. The argument is, why not take that thousands of dollars and put it to the classroom?
Sure. We are. There's nothing more foundational in our country's history than the Bible. If we're going to have our kids study American history, which they have to, kids have to understand how we got to this point. They have to understand how did America become great. If we're going to continue to be this great country, one of the lessons of history is that civilizations that don't understand their history or teach it to the next generation fall. They collapse. Our current generation has to understand the role of the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution played in American history, or we will not continue to be a great country. I don't see anything more pressing than that when you're talking about education for our kids, for them to understand our history. The Bible is a key part of that. The left has driven it out of schools. Now they're fighting mad that we're putting it back, but the reality is it is an important part of our history. I will always fight for what's best for our kids, for our state, for our families, and I fundamentally believe that the Bible has to be part of your education to understand America, American history, and American society. So I'll continue to fight for that, and we will have Bibles in the classroom in Oklahoma.
Do you plan on purchasing more?
Yes, so we're going to get more Bibles. Yeah, we're going to have a Bible in every classroom. So we're continuing these efforts. We're having them donated right now. We're going to continue to move forward. And look, we've got to get education back on track by moving it back to the basics And one of the fundamental basics is understanding the role the Bible played.
Absolutely. So I was going to stay on that briefly. Back to the USDE, with that going away, surely it makes your job a little harder, right? Is there more you guys have to take on?
I would say that it gives us a tremendous opportunity. What we've been able to do as a staff, and remember, we appointed a Trump advisory committee right after the election to say, President Trump's told you the Department of Ed's going away, so let's already start brainstorming out what we can do with these funds. We've already found ideas of how to bring more innovation in the classroom, how to further empower parents, how to bring more transparency to how dollars are being spent in the classroom. We're looking at ways to differently assess kids so that we can get a better understanding of where kids are. We look at how to increase tutoring services, how we can increase merit pay for teachers. So we've been brainstorming these, putting together these plans, and again, that was part of the conversation with the USDE this week of these are some of our plans, what do you guys think? So we got feedback from them on a lot of those issues as well. So we are ready to go. We are ready to put Oklahoma as a leader in education. We already have moved into that position with the reforms of the last 2 years, but with this opportunity, we're going to be able to accelerate that 100-fold.
So if we're ready to go, can you shed light on what immediate changes could look like, if any?
So right now we're still working on this waiver. And so, we'll be releasing some of this publicly in the next upcoming weeks. We've been working with Speaker Hilbert's team, the Pro Tem Paxton's team. We've actually embedded their teams with our team, so we're developing this all out together. This will be an Oklahoma state plan that's been worked on with the House of Representatives, the Senate, where we are going to develop the best possible path forward for Oklahoma education. And so we're going to be announcing some of those details soon, but right now we're trying to make sure that the waivers are going to be granted in the way that best benefit those plans. And again, I can't speak more highly of President Trump's Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, her team, and being able to have access to them and work through this together so that Oklahoma can be the first state to take advantage of what President Trump is doing for education.
I just got 2 questions left, and frankly, we're still near the bottom of education.
Yeah.
That's frustrating for
Sure.
me, frustrating for you,
Sure.
frustrating for everybody out there.
Absolutely.
How is this plan going to change that?
Well, what we know fundamentally in education is one of the biggest problems is we've rejected all free market principles in education. If you do better as a teacher, do you get paid more? No. Do you get any kind of ability to influence more students? No. Do you get the ability to go help the kids that are furthest behind? No. That's why we brought in merit pay to the classroom. That's why we brought in tutoring by the best teachers to the classroom, because again, what you find in every other industry is when something works, you incentivize it, right? Well, we've started doing that in education. Again, the numbers out of Tulsa are incredible when you see the merit pay program and how it worked there. Oklahoma City just instituted it, so it'll go into effect this next year. We've got to have more competitive forces in education. That's why we advance school choice. We're seeing parents move with their feet. Some are sending their kids to private schools that do a good job. Some of them are sending them to other public schools that they want. But what we're seeing is that competitive environment is starting to create more innovation in the education space. We're seeing teachers being recruited through signing bonuses and merit pay. So we're getting really high performers in the classroom, and we're also keeping those high performers with that merit pay. So all of these things are starting to move the needle. We're seeing schools come off the F list in a record rate. So all of these things are starting to come together where parents, if your kids fall behind in our schools, we have the best teachers tutoring them. Parents, if you're looking to send your kids to a new school, we are making sure that we are competitively attracting the best teachers. Parents, if you send your kids to a school and they fall behind, you will get notifications from the school every 2 weeks on their progress. It's something else we required. So we are bringing all of these changes into effect. We're seeing the impact. We're seeing a record year in schools coming off the F list. And so you're going to see these outcomes continue to improve. But we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal. We are going to be a leader in education, and we're going to do that by challenging the status quo, bringing in these changes, and so reforms are going to continue to come.
Okay, and this is my last question. I think I already almost know your answer on this, but if you chose to run again, you already have someone to run against. So what's next for Ryan Walters?
Look, this is my focus right now. Right now my focus is absolutely the school year. I want us to have the greatest school year in Oklahoma history, so we're focused on finishing strong. We're about to be in that testing window. So parents, your kids are probably coming home talking about tests. My daughter was, telling me this week of, Dad, I've got a test. I was like, I know you got a test, honey. I know. We're gonna work on it at home. But she's got great teachers. I'm excited for her. But one of the things we heard in Tulsa, going down meeting with their staff. I know you were there for that. I was asking Superintendent Johnson, tell me about it. She goes, hey, look, we're excited about it. We try to tell the kids to be excited because we're going to show how much you learned this year. And so my focus has been making sure all of our kids are ready for these tests, that our kids are ready to show how well they've done this year, that reforms have been instituted with fidelity this year so that all of our schools are high performing, and working with the legislature this session. Again, this waiver is huge. We have submitted the largest waiver in the country's history in education for the Federal Department of Education. Tremendous working with the speakers team, tremendously working with the pro tems team. They have given us tremendous help. I think we've got a great vision moving forward, and so that's my focus right now, is making sure that this is the best year ever, making sure we continue to work closely with the House and the Senate and continue to move education in the right direction.
All right, that's all I got.
Thank you,
That's
Devin.
something up for you as well. Anything
Yes,
else
sir.
you want to talk about?
No,
All right.
that's
I
all
think we
good.
covered it all.
Thank you, Devin. Hey,